This episode requires a content warning for discussions of mental illness, substance abuse, addiction, death, and suicide. We used to call it shell shock or combat fatigue. We rarely recognized it outside the context of war because in a society that only values valor, war is the only trauma worth paying attention to. We gave them opiates and sometimes alcohol, barbiturates or benzodiazepines, sometimes shock therapy, sometimes dogs. We tried to sedate them or hide them away because complex grief isn't something a capitalist society deals with until the funeral director can make a buck. We like to pathologize it, complex grief from horrific trauma, pain, and anger, and sadness and confusion you don't know what to do with, dumped on your head like a jumbled up ball of yarn that's been dipped in blood and leaves a mess everywhere around you when it lands on your head. Those of us who have it isolate ourselves. Lovers don't appreciate being awakened at night by panicked screams. Families don't understand where their little girl went. Friends don't understand why you're not the fun guy anymore. So we hide. We self-medicate. And then they call us maladapted. Addicts. There is no place in a society that is a machine for people who no longer function like parts of a machine. We are hidden away in closets and corners and padded rooms and work-from-home jobs and behind barroom counters where no one notices that we are never really sober. I've said before that PTSD is a bitch and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, but that's not really true. I want them to taste just a tiny hint of this feeling blue. Let them walk in my head for a day or a week. Let them feel the madness creeping in every time they try to sleep. Let them feel what they've broken me. The part no longer human. The part of me that screams in pain. That only exists because of you, man. Hi, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Naomi, and this is Mosaic in Progress. That poem, beat poem, prose, whatever you want to call it, was written by me. I have been writing a lot of beat poetry and prose lately to work out a lot of my feelings and trauma, and that one came out. The title of it is PTSD. I wrote that sometime last week, maybe the week before. Been working through a lot with PTSD and self-medication. I've been writing a lot about that. And I read some of what I've been writing to my husband. And as we were discussing it, and I was talking about how many people die from PTSD, and he was like, do they? And I said, probably a lot more than we realize. Because we never list PTSD as the cause of death. We don't say people died from PTSD. We say they died from cirrhosis. We say they died from liver cancer. or lung cancer. We say they die from diabetes or untreated diabetes, COPD, cigarettes, if we want to get a little more deep into it. We sometimes say they died from addiction or overdose. Sometimes we say they died from suicide, and if we want to get really deep, sometimes we'll say they died from depression. But we never say people died from PTSD, because PTSD takes away so much of your humanity and your will to live, and your ability to live a normal life. Things like taking a shower are monumental in effort, and not just the energy that it takes to shower, but the fact that when you get in the shower, you're vulnerable. You're naked. You don't have any weapons. You don't have any clothes. And you have all this water around you, so you can't really hear, so someone could sneak up on you very easily. It's a terrifying place to be when you constantly feel like you need to be watching everything around you to make sure that you're safe. And so hygiene gets thrown by the wayside when your senses are on hyper alert all the time. Any sensory input feels extreme, especially if someone's loud, or music is loud, or a dog is loud, or you're in a crowd, or someone's touching you too much, or there are too many people wanting things from you. PTSD is a bitch. It is a thing that makes living in a normal society difficult, if not impossible. And I think it reflects a societal failure. As you look, so many people love, patriotic people love to dote on warriors with PTSD. Me give to a cause that's going to send me a sticker or a coin or a t-shirt that I can wear so that I can show that I donated to the cause to help these poor warriors with PTSD. But none of them want to focus on stopping the unconstitutional wars that are causing the PTSD. That's disrespectful to the soldiers. And no one wants to focus on how many people have PTSD from sexual assault, or the fact that our justice system doesn't hold those people, those perpetrators, those rapists accountable. We like to ignore the fact that PTSD is a women's disease too. We talk so much about these brave men, and if they want to feel really feminist, brave men and women who went and fought wars. And I don't mean to take anything away from those who have PTSD from being deployed into wars to fight for oil, for countries that don't give a fuck about them, because their experiences are valid too. And especially coming home and realizing that the war that you fought was not really a war so much as a colonizing and empirical effort. And now you can't sleep because rich and powerful men from rich and powerful countries decided that you were expendable and you didn't need sleep or peace or health care or to be taken care of when you came back from fighting their little wars that they look at like a chess game. PTSD is a societal failure because capitalism dehumanizes people. Whether you are a soldier being sent off to war or a woman who is victimized by men, you are nothing but a cog in a machine, and if you're not helping the machine work, then your experience doesn't matter. Your pain doesn't count. It is not worthy to be recognized, let alone to be treated. Unless you can make someone money, you should just shut up. And that's the thing, because therapists cost money. And everyone has insurance, right? And though not everyone does have insurance, those who do very often still can't afford therapy because insurance doesn't cover things completely. Most people have to have a copay or a deductible, and they don't care that you don't have the money to pay that. So let your teeth rot out, hope that weird pain in your abdomen goes away, and drink something before you go to bed so you don't have the nightmares that wake you up in a violent fit of trying to defend yourself from things that aren't there. We don't have a healthcare system in this country. We have businesses that work in the umbrella of healthcare. We certainly don't have mental health. That's an entirely different conversation that's much more nuanced and heavy and less funded and recognized. PTSD is a societal failure because of all of the things that involve living in a society. The point of having a society, the point of forming community is so that we can all collaborate and help each other. So we can have things like a justice system, healthcare, help. The point of society, as much as anyone who is right-wing leaning would hate to admit it, is actually what Karl Marx wrote about in the Communist Manifesto. From each according to his ability, to each according to his need. That is the point of society. That we collaborate, we give of our ability, and we receive of our need. That's the whole point. That's why we collaborate. What the fuck would be the point otherwise? If we can all be independent and self-sustaining, there'd be absolutely no reason to deal with other people. None of us can get along anyway. And we set up governments to try to make society better, and that was a fucking mistake. So all they did was take the resources and the power, the authority, tell us we could survive on less, tell us we didn't need as much as we thought we needed. Society means collaboration. And in a society that is established with an absence of collaboration, we have to get back to the roots. We have to get back to the small potatoes. We have to start showing up for people. And remember what it means to show up for people, to not show up with expectations, to give of our ability without any expectations. But the expectations are not of that person, is the point. You should absolutely expect to receive according to your need, but not of the person that you're giving to. If you're giving to that person specifically, they are receiving according to their need. You will receive according to your need. And this is the principle of energy returning to itself. I was kind of reminded as I was making notes for this of a Bible verse. I had to look it up because I remembered we have this hope. And I was like, where did that come from? I know and it's Hebrew chapter 6 and verse 19. And I won't read the whole thing, but King James Version, which hope we have as an anchor of the soul, both sure and steadfast. It is this idea that you know of a surety. Absolutely. It anchors you into reality that you are going to receive exactly what you should expect to receive. The idea that energy returns to itself is like the law of gravity. Number one, it's always going to work, whether you believe in it or not. And number two, it's like gravity. If you throw a ball up in the air, you don't do it with the expectation of the ball returning like you are owed the ball. You throw the ball up in the air and you know how gravity works, and you wait for it to come down. Not that you deserve the ball, not that someone owes you the ball, not that gravity owes you the ball. You don't doubt it, and you don't doubt it if the ball doesn't return. You don't go, I guess gravity's broken. I guess gravity doesn't work anymore. You say something happened. Maybe I threw it in a different trajectory. Maybe a bird interfered. Or some such thing as that. Maybe there was a tree branch in the way that I didn't see. You don't doubt that gravity works. You recognize that there was interference. And we don't do that very well with ourselves, with expecting the universe to act in a loving way, which it always does, unless there's interference. We have to shift from the mentality of lack into the mentality of love. We don't need things from other people. We don't need to suss out from them or steal from them or eke out of them as much as we can get because we don't have enough. So we have to get it from other people. We have to give of our own ability, of our own resources, with the expectation that that's how energy return works. I'll give you what I have that you need, and I expect that what I need will return to me. Maybe not from you, but it'll come back, because that's how it works. That's balance. And we really forget, maybe some of us never knew, never learned, that the universe, the world, it operates on the frequency of love. And the only time that we see it not happening is when there's interference. And most often that's interference from us, blocking ourselves from love coming back to us. Love is the glue of society. It is what holds everything together. It is the underlying principle of why societies are formed. It is the fundamental building block of why people have societies in the first place, why they collaborate in the first place. Anything outside of love is chaos. And it's really interesting to think about the idea of the invisible hand, because we live in a capitalist society that is allegedly built on Adam Smith's principles outlined in The Wealth of Nations, and he talked about this invisible hand that controls the economy. And if you read what he meant by that, he was talking about God. He was talking about love. The invisible hand is love. It is the overriding principle that everyone gets what they need. You put out what you're able to. You give of your ability, of your means, and you receive back exactly what you need. Those who may not be able to give as much still receive back what they need. The invisible hand theory is actually not at odds with the Communist Manifesto. And the more people who actually read it and recognize that, the better off we'd be. I remember shortly after I was diagnosed with PTSD, I started trying to join the military. I was really leaning more towards the Navy, possibly the Air Force. That was my last choice. Or the Army, because I really, really wanted to be a combat nurse. And I remember talking to my therapist about it as I was doing this. And to be fair, I wanted to be a combat nurse since I was a little girl. I dreamed about it since I was a little girl. I did not get in. I applied to all three of those branches, and I did not get in because they don't accept women who have endometriosis or who are diagnosed with mental health conditions. And so I was talking to my therapist and how I felt about it and why I was wanting to join and everything, and I mentioned my PTSD and everything, and she said, "Do you think you need to earn it?" And I was kind of horrified that she asked that, and I asked her what she meant, and she said, "Do you think you need to earn having PTSD? Do you think you need to do something to be able to merit having it?" And the truth of the matter is that I did. I did think I needed to earn it, because as much as veterans are neglected in this country, and I don't want to diminish that at all, the VA treats them like shit. The VA is underfunded, and I don't mean people in the VA. I know that the doctors and nurses, for the most part, who work there actually care about veterans. I'm just talking about the system as a whole and how it is funded and how veterans are treated. Veterans are neglected in this country a lot by the systems that are allegedly there to support them. However, veterans are also treated like they deserve to be taken care of by a lot of the public. There are programs for them to get service dogs. There are discounts for them everywhere they go, restaurants, hardware stores, etc. I don't mean this to come across like I was jealous or am jealous in any way, or diminishing anything that our veterans have done. But having PTSD and not being a veteran is very isolating, because no one cares that you have PTSD because you've been sexually assaulted. There's no programs for you to get a service dog. There's no people offering to buy you a drink or coffee or your meal or give you a discount because of what you've been through. It's just raw dogging it through life. So yes, I did feel like I had to earn my PTSD diagnosis because I was going through exactly the same things that all of my veteran friends were going through. Exactly the same things, because I have a lot of friends who are veterans, and we discussed PTSD symptoms, and a lot of mine at the time were much worse than theirs. But I didn't have any support, and they did. And that is not to say that veterans are supported and no one else is, because veterans are ignored a lot. But yes, I did feel like I had to earn that diagnosis. I felt like I needed to prove something to society so that they would believe that what I'd gone through was bad enough, that I needed help. And the thing is, what's really funny about that, and I didn't realize at the time because this has been almost a decade ago, is that had I done that, I still wouldn't have had the help that I needed. Because veterans really don't get support. They don't get help. At the time, it felt like they did because I couldn't afford therapy, and all of my friends who were veterans were able to get therapy through the VA. I couldn't afford to get a service dog, and all of my friends who were veterans were connected with these programs who would get service dogs for them if their therapist just wrote them a note, and they at no cost to them. And they were still drinking themselves into passing out every night because their PTSD wasn't deemed bad enough for them to need certain kinds of meds. They still couldn't hold down jobs because their PTSD wasn't deemed bad enough to be considered a disability. And so they had to try to keep jobs that were too stressful for them to deal with because of their PTSD. We fail our veterans. But we don't just fail our veterans, we fail everyone in our society, and especially those who have any kind of mental illness or are dealing with any kind of trauma. If we started marking PTSD as a cause of death, if we paid attention to what the underlying cause of the disease that caused the death was, I think we would all be shocked and overwhelmed, and I hope heartbroken at how many deaths we have caused as a society by our failure to support the people in it. We have to step up for people. We have to start stepping up for people in every way. We've got to stop judging so much and start working from a place of love. We all feel the lack. Of course we do. The resources are hoarded away from us. We're all going to feel lack. We're always going to feel that until things shift, but they won't shift until we stop focusing on our lack and start focusing on the love. You've got to start reaching out to the people around you, whether you're the person who needs help or you're someone who can offer it. Don't give with expectations, and don't receive with the idea of debt. I've talked quite a bit on this podcast in the last 6 months about my unemployment and my back. I broke down yesterday because I was talking to some friends, and one of my friends suggested that we just all help each other out. We can just take turns going to each other's houses and helping each other out with cleaning or whatever. I can't even clean my own house. That's very embarrassing to admit on a podcast where anyone can hear this, but my back is so bad I can barely get through making toast and an egg in the morning without my leg going numb and needing to sit down before I fall down in my kitchen. I can't help somebody else with their dishes. I can't help somebody with their gardening. I could maybe help someone sort their mail. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants you to take away the easy jobs that they do as a break. I can sort your mail. I could maybe chop up some fruits and vegetables for you if I can sit at a table to do it. I can do the easy jobs as long as I don't have to stand up. And nobody wants help with that. Nobody's asking for help with that. And I can't do the things to help people in the way that I need help. I feel ostracized from society because being unemployed, I don't have the money to pay anybody to do it. And I can't offer return in kind. So I just live in a house that is messy, that is not unpacked. It's not put together. And every day I feel more like a failure. And I really intended to end this episode on a high note, but I guess sometimes there's not a high note. PTSD is a bitch, and it kills people, and it isolates people, and we don't do enough to recognize the impact it has on our society. And I'm really sorry to leave on that heavy of a note, but thank you once again for tuning in. And this is always, please follow me wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're on social media, I'm everywhere at Mosaic in Progress. And please join me next week on the podcast as we both continue to work on our Mosaic in Progress.